Artificial intelligence is essentially a loose umbrella term of technologies that we define, which are inspired by biological systems. So essentially, they help computers understand, perceive, essentially hear or see things just like humans, or make decisions or do reasoning. So essentially, AI is a bunch of technologies. We essentially define AI as 6 key technologies under that umbrella. So essentially, deep learning, machine reasoning, computer vision, natural language processing, and strong AI. So these are sort of the 6 key pillars that we define AI as. Today, most of AI is dominated by deep learning, which is essentially driving a lot of AI today, which helps computers understand, see better or hear better, or understand speech and language better. So most of the progress that we've seen in AI in the last 6-7 years or so has been in the deep learning space. And in terms of global trends, what we see essentially is a bunch of use cases where AI is being applied today. In fact, Tractica has developed a taxonomy of use cases, about 300 use cases across 30 different industries, spanning all these 6 key technology areas. And we've tried to forecast how AI will be applied today and then going forward to 2025. So we have a very wide view of AI, looking across all these different use cases, but a very deep view as well. So it's a wide and deep sort of perspective on AI adoption. And what we see today is majority of AI being applied in very niche problem areas, so industries like consumer internet services, automotive, retail, financial services, to start off with. But in the future, we see AI being applied across almost every industry. So it is going to be highly pervasive, and it will just be another technology, just like we understand software or digital technology. We see AI being as pervasive as any of those technologies. So Africa right now is in this very early stages of adoption of AI. AI in Africa essentially is being applied in very niche sectors, areas like telecoms, for example, and we can talk about that later. But in terms of adoption of AI within Africa, the majority of it is being done by the large internet companies. For example, Google and Facebook have, Google has opened an AI lab in Ghana, for example. Facebook has started an AI degree. So essentially it's very sort of initial stages of trying to build up an ecosystem of AI engineers, homegrown AI skills, which can then kickstart sort of an ecosystem for the AI, for AI in Africa, essentially. The problem in Africa, essentially, and we see AI needs to be viewed with a different lens, essentially, compared to, say, developed markets. So in Africa, with a low internet penetration, even low broadband speeds compared to, say, developed markets. Also the low level of maturity, digital maturity as we see it in the enterprise. Africa essentially is going to see a different a wave of AI compared to developed markets. And what I mean by that is in areas, for example, like automotive or electronics, which are essentially linked to global supply chains, you do see some early adoption of AI in Africa. But for the most part, the way I see Africa using AI is with mobile-driven industries. And what I mean by that is industries like, for example, mobile money or financial services, which are again driven by mobile, or education, or even agriculture, which are again all industries which are seeing a lot of disruption through mobile-based technologies, so through handsets, through smartphones, and through mobile internet. All of these industries, I think, are going to really benefit compared to, say, some of the traditional industries which have low digital maturity. So I think AI in Africa is going to develop in a slightly different way compared to what we've seen in, say, developed markets. So AI in the telecoms industry within Africa, again, is its very initial stages. Majority of AI within telecoms we see being applied in the area of network optimization. In fact, we size the African telecoms AI opportunity around $250 million by 2025. 70% of that is in the network optimization space. We see an inflection point occurring around 2019, 2020, possibly 2021, where 4G and 5G build-outs will start in earnest, and that essentially is going to drive a lot of the AI deployment within telecoms in Africa, we believe. Other than that, we see AI being applied in areas like customer services, using chatbots, for example, or even within the CRM space, customer relationship management, allowing for sales enablement using AI, for example. So all of the other areas which are both sort of customer facing but also sort of backdoor operations to improve the efficiency of telecom operators, I think. So we see it being applied across a very vast range of use cases, but majority of it, as I said, is in the network optimization space. So AI in Africa, as I said again, the first thing that needs to happen is essentially digital disruption. Essentially, digital is the bedrock of any AI strategy. Without digital data, you really cannot deploy AI. So digital maturity has to increase within enterprises. But other than that, I also see things like AI skills, education itself, AI research and development centers, AI hardware infrastructure, which is sort of local to the African region. Also policies around ethics and bias, which are big issues in the AI landscape. So I think all of those together, I think, which are actually common, not just to, it's common across almost all regions in the world. If you look at the West or, in China, the way AI is being developed, I think all of those factors are quite common. But I think in the African context, I think the priority should be definitely given towards skills and education to begin with, and then the rest can possibly follow from that. So we see AI having quite a profound impact on the jobs market. In fact, in the next 5, 10, 20 years. To begin with, I think AI is going to start impacting the lower level jobs, which are more sort of mundane, more repetitive. And in fact, a good sort of analogy that Andrew Ng, who is one of the sort of leading AI experts in the world, who work at Google and Baidu, he basically says that any job that a human can do in less than 1 second is something that AI can do today, so it can be automated. So you can think of it in terms of level 1 automation. If you sort of make an analogy to, say, autonomous cars, how you have level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're kind of in the sort of level 1 phase right now. But I think over time, AI will start to get better at doing things like reasoning and even decision making. So even those tasks which humans take, say, a few seconds or minutes to do, I think AI will start to get better in that, and those sort of jobs, AI possibly is going to play more of a sort of a role of helping or augmenting humans, I think. But I think overall the challenge is going to be the jobs which are disrupted, how quickly can you retrain those people? That essentially is a challenge of trying to keep up with the pace of AI, and then also sort of retraining the people who have, say, lost their job because of automation. I think that is going to be a key challenge, and in the African context, that possibly is going to be a big issue in the future. So African business leaders, I think, should, number one, educate themselves about AI. What is AI? Understand, what do you mean by AI? What do you mean by AI? Because there are lots of these definitions flying around. So understand clearly what AI is. What does it mean in their own business context? Because you can sort of the application of AI is so broad, you can get lost in terms of how exactly you apply AI in your own a business context. So I think it's best to educate yourself, take a crash course. There are lots of these open online courses that you can do to just educate what AI is, and then from there on, I think try and understand what use cases you can choose. I think so, choosing a set of use cases that where you can start applying AI to see some benefits, and then go from there. So start small, start experimenting. So I would say those are the some of the few suggestions that I have for business leaders. But other than that, I think also starting to think about hiring, training your own sort of AI skills, engineers in AI skills, building up a good sort of AI skill base, which can then help promote AI in Africa in the larger context. So help start R&D centers, maybe help fund university programs. And then I think once you build that sort of ecosystem of skills, and that will all then sort of start to feed into, say, startups and entrepreneurship and investment, and then I think it'll flow from there. And then you also possibly need some sort of policies, government policies. So business leaders should definitely start to work closer with governments to help draft policies. For example, policies around data regulation. Having data frameworks which allow you to help protect privacy of data, but at the same time help you port data across geographies, across boundaries. So I think all of that has to sort of come together. So I think business leaders have an important role to play within Africa, where they can, number one, educate themselves, but then also drive all of these different initiatives. So AI Summit is one of the premier AI conferences in the world, which is focused on business and enterprise applications of AI. In fact, Tractica has been very closely involved with the AI Summit over the last few years. In fact, we've seen it grow from strength to strength. So I think this AI Summit in Africa will provide you with a really good window of how AI is being applied today in Africa. So there's some great thought leaders coming to the show and talking about how they see AI in the African context. But you also have people coming from say Europe or North America, where they can provide some of their own best practices of how they have applied AI, and which can then be sort of taken as some learnings or sort of recommendations in terms of how AI can be applied in Africa. So I would definitely recommend AI Summit in Africa highly to anybody in Africa who wants to really understand what is AI and how AI can help them solve their own enterprise problems.